makes the charges against all its staff. We are taking you live to the Thai capital, Bangkok now, where the general who led the military coup is being officially endorsed by the royal family. It means General Prayut Chan-o-cha now has the formal status of the head of the government. Let's go to our correspondent, Scott Heidler, who is standing by for us in the Thai capital. Scott, what does being endorsed by the royal family mean for General Prayut Chan-o-cha, and what does it also mean for those anti-coup protests that are continuing in Thailand?
Well, what it means is he is officially now the head of the country, Thailand. The military took over in a coup last Thursday, but now since the king has given his approval and he's gone through this ceremony, he is officially now the head of the country. Now, what's that going to mean moving forward with these anti-coup protests, as you said? Those who are royalists, those who support the king and support this as a kingdom, they will probably have to take a little bit of a step back, if you will, because if they are so behind what the king does and all things that come out of the royal family, they'll have to accept the fact now that the king has given his okay, if you will, that this is the way forward for this country. Now, there are some anti-coup protesters who we saw out in the streets on Sunday that don't necessarily aren't as royalist as you could say that other people are. So they might still go ahead with their anti-coup protest. But again, that's something that the army has said they are trying to convince people not to do. They say the way forward needs to be a unified voice and moving forward and toward reform. And we're seeing that happening today. There are more meetings going on. Business leaders have been summoned by the army, by the junta that's ruling this country now, to come in and meet and talk about the economy and how things can go forward in reforming the economy, in reforming the government, and reforming agencies that run the big entities, the big energy concerns here in Thailand. So those mechanisms will continue. As we hear from the general, and no doubt saying describing how this royal approval of what he has done, this coup that he undertook last Thursday. Now, what's going to be interesting, and this is something we're probably not going to hear in the next couple of hours, definitely not in the next couple of days, and that is just how involved the royal family was in this when they were notified about the coup. Did the general go to them beforehand and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking of doing? Did they work in consultation with them? Or did it happen simultaneously? So that'll be interesting going forward. But right now, the big news and the important thing for a lot of people of Thailand is that the king has given his approval, and now the general is officially the head of Thailand.
So Scott, if the king has given his approval, does that mean then that there's no sign of a return to civilian rule anytime soon?
Well, what the general has said right the way through is that his goal is to reform, go through a reformation process, and then hold elections at some point. He doesn't say how long how deep the reform is going to be. He doesn't say how long he expects that to take place. And then even after all those reforms are in place, constitutions rewritten, all these things, all these very detailed and quite honestly time-consuming things are taken care of, and then they can start to talk about elections. We know that the political parties too, they're going to have to regroup, if you will, before they can even contest in elections moving forward. So we've got a lot of steps to go forward before that can actually happen. So but the intent of the general, and he has said this right the way through, is that this country will be again a democracy. A lot of steps for that to happen. And going back to the reform issue, this is something that the anti-government protest leaders have been calling for right the way through the last 6 months. And that is something that, in that respect they have won, but it's really going to take a long, long process, and there are going to be a lot of voices in those discussions of exactly how to move forward, how to reform many layers of the government here.
Thank you very much for that, Scott. That's our correspondent, Scott Heidler, joining us from the Thai capital, Bangkok, where the head of the army, General Prayut Chan-o-cha, has confirmed that he has received the King's endorsement to lead Thailand. Moving on now, and US President